for the future today. You're building that foundation for the future at the Convention of States, so thank you.
All right, thank you for being here. If we could trickle in and find our seats, I think we'll have enough. But for those who are not able to sit down here, there will be. You're obviously welcome to stand in the lobby, but there will be an overflow room if you'd like as well. I sure hope you're not bothered by the American flag, because we do not have first aid out there to take care of you. This is our country, and that's not a racist statement. This is our country, and we want it back. Yep. And we're here today to talk about how to get it back. So with that said, we want to start first things first. We want to start off with a word of prayer. We want to thank our gracious host here, Pastor Dominic Cuso, for this affording us this wonderful facility. And Pastor Cuso, if you could just start us in prayer and give a word about the church and what you're here for.
Well, this is a wonderful crowd. There's lots of enthusiasm, and I just want you to know I'm thankful for COS. I'm thankful for those that work so hard for this. I'm thankful that you're here, and this is having folks that have morals and have ethics and believe in real liberty involved in these kind of things is really what it's all about. And so we're just thankful to be a part of things today. I'd ask you to pray for my congregation, pray for me, myself. We're taking our civic involvement very seriously. I was just mentioning some folks. I've held a county committee office within the party for a long time, but I ran recently for office. The attacks were awful. And but I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on my family just because we have frustrating situations. I'm not going to give up on civics. Both things were ordained by God. And God's at work in all these things, so pray for us. Let's do this. I always recommend this to our folks. You can listen to me pray, and that's fine. And maybe you don't believe in God or whatever the situation is. But that's fine. But I would ask if you do believe, and if you aren't speaking ground with God, right? Let's go ahead and pray together. And let's ask for God's blessing on this. Really, in my case, and maybe it's not for you, but in my case, God saved me. I was a sinner apart from him, without Christ, his death, his burial, resurrection. That's the good news, and that's what we're about. And if that's number one for me as a pastor in church, then number two means I need to work as hard as I can to still be able to do that and have the freedoms to share that with people, right? In the marketplace of ideas, every idea should be expressed, and folks should be left to what they'll believe on their own. So let's pray that those things go forward in the right way here today. Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can speak to you. We thank you for this group of people that have dedicated this time and preparation. Lord, I thank you for what you've done in this country, and we've seen miracle after miracle of how you preserved us and helped us and guided us. We ask that you continue to do that. I pray especially with the things that are put in place here and planned, and those that would be both involved and energized, engaged going forward. I pray that they would be inspired and helped. Lord, we want to have a right knowledge. There's so much fake news out there. I pray you give us a discerning spirit to know what is true and what is right, and to both believe and act on those things that are right. Lord, we thank you so much now for this time. We ask your blessing on those that speak, on all the technology going on to put this out, hopefully to thousands and perhaps even millions online, Lord, that this would just be something that catches on just like a spark today, that catches on going forward, especially in this area and in this region. Lord, we know in the past you began revivals here. In this area. You began spiritual awakenings in this area, and you've began even political revolutions in this area. I pray all those things in the right way would be started in a good way here today. We thank you now. We ask these things in Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen and amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Cuso. At this time, we're going to have our legislative liaison, Carlo Nardone, come up and lead us in the pledge. I'd ask that you all stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Thanks. Thank you, Seth. Big flag, all right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. So first off, I want to thank the members of the team here. You wouldn't believe the amount of planning that goes into even a simple event like this. There have been people here from 10 o'clock in the morning till now decorating, getting things ready. So I'd like to just give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. And I think we're all here because we know there's something wrong in our country. There is something very deeply wrong and sinister, and the lines have moved. You don't even need to be left or right to understand that freedom of speech is under attack. Freedom of religion has recently come under attack. Everything is on the table now in a way that I think we never thought would happen. But we're also here today because I believe we have a solution that is as big as the problems we face, and that's Convention of States. Convention of States, we're here to call a convention to amend the Constitution. And I almost hesitate to say amend the Constitution because we don't want to rewrite the Constitution. We want to restore the Constitution because what we're living under right now is not the Constitution. What we're living under right now is the result of years and years of judicial overreach. It's the result of years and years of federal spending, corrupting things. You would be shocked, if you haven't already looked it up, you'd be shocked to see how much of each state's budget is federal money, right? You as a voter are supposed to control and have the say in your state, but guess what? The biggest voter in your state is the federal government. That's a problem. And that's a problem because we're all about self-governance. America was founded on the idea that we are capable of governing ourselves. We went to war with a power that says, no, you don't have the capability to govern yourselves. We're going to handle it. We, the adults, are going to handle it. And America, that sparked the American Revolution, one of the things that sparked it. We don't want to be governed from D.C. because you know what? Your vote in the general election, right? Your vote is 1 out of 100 million. Your vote here in New Jersey is 1 out of a couple million. Your vote in your town is 1 out of a couple thousand. I took a look at the precinct results after voting in the primaries this last time. You know what? You know how many people? I live in Hudson County. It's deeply, it's very populated. There's probably a couple thousand people in my precinct. Guess how many voted in, my party, which was Republican? It was 8. 8 people. 8 people. We think of this country, we almost think of this state sometimes as hopeless, but it's those 8 people that show up and make the decisions, and we want to be those people. We don't want to be the other people making those decisions. So we see a lot of issues these days. We see things popping up. It's almost like whack-a-mole, right? This popping up, this woke culture popping up, this critical race theory, and we're racing back and forth trying to see what, we're plugging the dike, but it's leaking too fast. And I think almost every problem you see can be traced either directly or indirectly back to the imbalance of power, to who is making the decisions. And who is making the decisions? It's not even the elected people. We talk about term limits. We want to throw out the people that have been there forever and ever in Congress. Those aren't even the people making the decisions. The people making the decisions are the Dr. Fauci's of the world. They're the bureaucrats of the world where you see they last through administrations, they make the policy on their own, and the state keeps going exactly the way it's going. That's got to change, and that will change. We will change that. And how are we going to do it? We're going to do it via Convention of States. And what is it going to take? It's going to take commitment, because in a perverse kind of way, the left, we see these things popping up, and we think we fight them. By the time these things have popped up, they've already grown roots. The left has been chipping away at the foundation of this nation year after year after year, court case after court case, and by the time we see it, by the time it gets into our backyard, it's almost too late. That's why we lose these battles. We get distracted with these things. We need to cut the head off of the Leviathan here. And that wasn't a violent, that's a form of speech. I'm not advocating for violence here, right? They've sacrificed for what they've won. And guess what? We have to too. It's not enough like a momentary enthusiasm. People got very upset after January 6th, very upset about the election, wanted to get in. Hey, it's not just that momentary, I got to do something. It's commitment. Whenever I have kids, which is often, we have 5 kids, but I go to Hackensack. And in Hackensack, you'll see the signs, as you do throughout all of New Jersey, you'll see the signs for Washington's retreat. At this time, in 1776, our cause was riding high. We were taking Boston, and we thought the war was going to be over, right? And then New York City happened. Washington's army went from 20,000 down to 2,000, a fraction of what it was. And it's that fraction that stayed through all of that to whom we owe everything that we have today. We've got to be that fraction, right? In 1861, the North and the South were marching, and they would meet at the Battle of Bull Run in I believe it was July 22nd. They all thought, this is going to be a quick war. It's going to be over. We're going to win. Years later, and over 500,000 dead, it wasn't over. D-Day, right? We just celebrated D-Day, June 6th. You know, D-Day wasn't the end. I mean, it might have been the beginning of the end. It wasn't the final. It wasn't the end, certainly, for thousands of Americans that died afterwards in the fields of France, fighting from bush to bush, shrubbery to shrubbery, right? It was almost going to get bogged down like World War I. But then a hurricane made landfall named George S. Patton, and he ended that, right? The fight that we have to fight, not as much as expected of us, right? We need to sacrifice. We're not asked to put our lives on the line. We're asked for, a little time at night. We're asked for the weekends to show up things, write your legislators, call your legislators. That's a small thing in comparison. But the consequences of our failure to preserve our nation, the consequences are just as dire, just as dangerous, and just as destructive as if they'd have lost to the Nazis in Germany, as if they'd have lost to the British back in 1776. So that's what we're asking of people. That's what we ask of people. We don't ask much, but we do ask sacrifice. It's going to be a long battle. It's taken a long time to get us here. It's going to take a long time to get us out. But I believe that Convention of States is the solution. We need to bring back the fight here. We have a lot to fight here in New Jersey. But let's fight the people in New Jersey, not in D.C. And so speaking of sacrifice and speaking of volunteers, I want to bring up a man who I've come to know, a man who's volunteered. He's our coalitions director. He's really become something of the public face of Convention of States. If you've been on our webinars, you've seen him. And I'm going to have him come up and introduce the panel discussion that we're going to have today. And that man is Chris Garzino here. Chris, would you take it away?
How's everyone doing this afternoon? Good, good. So my name's Chris Garzino. As Seth mentioned, I'm the Coalitions Director for Convention of States. And what I'm going to do is we're going to have a panel discussion today. I'm going to bring up a few people, and we're going to go through what their thoughts are on Convention of States, why they joined, what it took them to join, and I think it'll give you a good feel for the organization and maybe, sway you a little bit if you're unsure. You may decide afterwards to join up with us. So first we have Jan Hagan. Have a seat, man. Tara Fleming. Eric Williamson. And Gary Brenner. So let's get started. Why don't you guys just take us through real briefly, how long you've been with Convention of States, what town you're from, what district that falls in, and what your role is with the organization. So Jan, why don't we start with you?
Hello. My name is Jan Hagan. I'm from Roxbury. I'm Succossuna, New Jersey. That's in northern New Jersey, District 25. We're around the Morristown area. I've been with Convention of States a little over 2 years, and I am a district captain for District 25, and I'm a regional captain for the Northwest region.
Tara?
Hi, I'm Tara Fleming. I'm from Middletown, New Jersey. That's like central New Jersey. I've been with the organization since 2014. But as a volunteer since 2017, 2018, a district captain for District 13 and Central East regional captain.
Eric?
My name's Eric Williamson. I'm from right here in New Egypt. This is actually Central Jersey. So we're in District 12. I'm a district captain here in District 12, and I've been involved with Convention of States for about a year.
Hi, I'm Gary Brenner. I'm from Wayne, New Jersey. I've been with Convention of States for 6 years, and I'm the district captain in District 40 and the state media liaison.
Thanks. Thank you. So with volunteers, every volunteer has sort of a why moment, a moment where they say, you know what, I've had enough. I got to do something. So why don't you take us through what your moment was when you said, I have to join something, I have to do something. Tara, why don't you start us off?
You know, it wasn't really one specific thing. I think was maybe when President Obama was elected, I didn't vote for him, but once he was elected, I really felt such a sense of pride, you know, in the country. I got goosebumps. I mean, I just thought, you know, maybe he will change things. Mm-hmm. He maybe will make a difference. I mean, he promised he would, but it seemed that he actually did the opposite. Like, he actually entrenched all the very worst things about the government. Yep. And he might as well have been, you know, Jimmy Carter. I mean, he really didn't make any changes. He actually was, I think, just made it actually worse. So then after that, I started paying a little more attention. So that would be my main thing that got me going.
Jan?
Well, actually, I was really apolitical for almost ever. I hated politicians. I hate to be lied to. So there was never really a moment that I said, I've got to do, you know, I've got to volunteer. I would get in Facebook, you know. Well, on let's start with September 11th. When that happened, my politics changed. I started paying attention. All of a sudden, it's affecting us. We're not sitting back and sunning on the beach anymore. Our people were actually attacked. And so I started paying attention, and then along comes the 2016 election. You start to get frustrated. You see that things are you know, that there's corruption. And in 2016, holy cow, the veil came off. You know, all of a sudden you could see all the corruption that was going on. So I started getting in Facebook conversations, debates. Actually, it's a sport. I would always win, right? Because you never get personal, and you just stick to the facts, and as soon as they call you a name, you win. That's it. It was ineffective, okay? Did nothing, changed nobody's heart. I was being dragged along. There was not I gotta do something. It's like, oh, geez, I gotta, okay, volunteer, okay, I'm gonna volunteer. I found out about Convention of States on Facebook. I signed the petition. Okay, yeah, volunteer. Then Mark Meckler talked at Rider College. And I went and I said, oh, I should really do something. Oh, I really should do something. Mm-hmm. So eventually I found the state leadership meeting in Wayne. I showed up, and that was it. They got me to volunteer, and here I am 2 years later, and I hope you can join us. We could use you.
Well, we thank you for joining. Go ahead, Eric.
So what got me involved, first of all, I'm a student of history. I've done an awful lot of reading about American history, in particular the Civil War and Andrew Jackson's presidency. So I've been well aware of the deterioration of states' rights in this country for a long, long time, over a century. However, I've seen it gallop further down the road towards, you know, totalitarianism, really. And so, you know, I've been paying attention for a long time. Some friends of mine and I were standing around in somebody's backyard last summer, really complaining hard about the state of the nation and the direction that things are going. And I walked away from that conversation and realized that complaining is not helping. You know, it feels good to gripe to some like-minded people and some friends and have some company and whatever, but I realized it's not changing anything and it's not helping. And so I went home that night and I started looking for what can I do to make an impact that isn't going to result in a headline, an arrest, and go away. Really. You know, and the other piece of it is because of my reading, I thought I knew a little something about the Constitution, but I had no idea what Article 5 was until I found the Convention of States website. And when I realized that Article 5, and specifically the Convention of States, is the tool that the founders gave us to solve exactly the problem that we have now, I realized that this is the solution. This, I believe, is the only solution that doesn't involve shooting at each other. You know, I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but I'm not joking. And so I decided right away to volunteer. And, you know, it's, as Seth said, you know, it's not that much of a commitment. You know, make a few phone calls, spread the word, talk to some people, call your legislators, you know, stand up and be heard. We had a petition drive a few weeks ago at the Columbus Market, and some loudmouth said, "I'd lay down my life for this country." And I said, "I'm glad to hear that, because I want much less of a commitment." I said, "Please join me as a volunteer." "Oh, I don't have time for that."
It's about
really,
making the sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And too many people are living their lives, and they just don't want to do that.
And even some of the friends that I was standing around in that backyard with, you know, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time to commit. I said, look, if all of us don't have time, nothing gets done. But if we all do a little bit, even if it's not enough, something gets done. And so anyhow, that's what got me here, that's what keeps me here, and I hope you'll join us.
Gary?
My path to Convention of States and to here today shares many similarities with Jan, Tara, and Eric. I was not politically active before joining Convention of States. I believe I was always politically aware, politically concerned, and growing more so as time went on, as the years went on. I listened to the news, to the talk show hosts. I just didn't see a place for myself, and also probably call it some self-centeredness, and that's on me, and I take responsibility for that. But at a certain point, probably when I started hearing a kinder, gentler nation and Read My Lips, No New Taxes, and then progressing on from there to the Bill Clinton era and when President Obama instituted Obamacare. I think that kind of was the turning point for me in saying I have to actually do something instead of just being aware and concerned. That's not enough. And around that time, I heard Mark Levin on radio talk about Convention of States. And I remember pretty clearly something kind of clicking, and I said, this is it. This is where I can make this change, this big change. And I did, and that's how I reached out, and I started making connections with Convention of States and going to the local monthly meeting in Wayne, and that was 6 years ago. So that's how I came to be here today.
Great, thank you. So Jan and Eric, you know, you shared, you know, what brought you here. But take us through, you know, as a new member, what kind of guidance do you guys give, you know, new or prospective members?
Well, I would say the first thing that I did is learn about what Convention of States is, what Article 5 is, what it entails, and how we got to get there. It's all about connecting in your local communities to make a difference in the federal government. something small turns into something big. And you need to learn about what we're doing. Go to meetings, talk to people, learn who Convention of States people are, because we're a family. We're all members of New Jersey. We're all concerned about what's going on in our state and in our local and in our government. So you can't make changes to the federal government if you're not engaged in the local government.
So for me, it starts off the same as Jan, you know, get educated. There's a ton of information on the Convention of States website. There's a bunch of training videos. Most of them are about 7 or 8 minutes long. Very few of them require a huge time commitment, but there's a ton of information there. Join, become a volunteer. There's more information available as a volunteer. Once I got involved, I learned about Rick Green's online Constitution class, Patriot Academy. I mentioned that I thought I knew something about the Constitution before I got involved in this group. I had no idea what I didn't know. So that's number one, get educated. And number two is spread the word. I mean, I have a little stack of business card sized information cards about Convention of States. And you know, if I'm at a traffic light and I see somebody with a bumper sticker that I think would be receptive to it, I'll even jump out of the truck and knock on the window. Here, check this out. I'm not joking, I do that all the time. The other thing I tell people is, you know, there was a lot of talk about draining the swamp. And our last president tried to drain the swamp by pulling the plug out of the top. And that doesn't work. It has to start here. It has to start with us. If we're not involved, you know, one of the, I don't see her here now. Monica actually said, Monica Sellers is one of the Convention of States people. She remarked that if, on one of the training classes, if we succeed in calling a Convention of States, but we fail to build the grassroots, we've still failed the mission. And that's because even if we call the Convention of States and we get amendments passed that restore the Constitution to what it's supposed to be, if we're not involved, in a short time, we're going to be right back here. You know, it takes us at this level to make this happen. And
takes commitment. Takes commitment. So Tara and Gary, you guys are really the veterans of the group here. You've been with Convention of States for over 6 years. Throughout that time, you know, the organization has grown, or the team in New Jersey has grown, but we really haven't accomplished the goal of getting our resolution passed. But yet you guys are real, you know, you're still as dedicated as day one, you're focused. You know, what advice do you give prospective and current members about, you know, staying the course? Because it's obviously not something that's going to happen overnight.
No, I agree with that. Sometimes that's a little hard when you have a goal that you feel is not attainable. But I just, what Eric just said about the mission, right? Getting the resolution passed is definitely a goal and a really important goal. But the mission is this right here. Look around, this is the mission. Because we need to have this team. Because even when the Convention of States happens, the resolutions are passed, you know, if we're sort of not there to continue to hold our local representatives accountable, you know, it's not going to be for nothing. You know, and the other part of it too is, and this I learned from, like, you know, Monica, Mark, listening to them, not to get discouraged, because it's not our duty. Our duty is ours. Results are God's. It's not our job to win. It's our job to fight.
Yep. Yep.
I fully echo what Tara said. I think there's a dual nature to Convention of States in that we have a definite sense of urgency in getting to what you can call that mission accomplished moment of having a convention and getting amendments proposed and then ratified. Yeah, but Convention of States is actually more than a convention and more than a ratification. Convention of States is includes a restoration of self-governance, a restoration of a culture of self-governance. This is a long-term aspirational goal. In other words, there's not necessarily a finite point to it. It's a change in lifestyle nationally, a national cultural change of lifestyle, which is accomplished day in and day out by what we do, including what we're doing here today, meeting and talking about these things. And we're changing, we're educating our fellow Americans, we're changing how we think about governing and our role in governing and our relationship with government. That is restoring a culture of self-governance on a daily basis. So I would encourage you, what I'm saying is, keep that dual nature in mind. The finite mission accomplished goal and the broader picture, the aspirational part of it.
So Gary, why don't you take us through where the resolution stands within the state at this point? How far along in the process are we?
Okay, we have our resolution, which is filed in both houses of the New Jersey legislature, that is the New Jersey State Senate and the New Jersey Assembly. And each house has a separate resolution number. In the Senate, it's SCR 14. In the Assembly, it's ACR 98. Those resolutions are assigned to committee. They've been introduced. They're placed in committee in both of those houses. We have primary and co-sponsors in both houses, New Jersey state senators who sponsor the resolution and New Jersey assemblymen and women who sponsor the resolution. I believe there's 23 in total New Jersey state lawmakers who sponsor these concurrent resolutions in the Senate and the House. Now, we are pushing and working and planning towards having a hearing, a committee hearing, for at least one of these resolutions, the one in the Senate or the one in the Assembly. We hope that'll be soon. And we're preparing for that. We're planning for that. We are actually working on having a simulated hearing in preparation for the actual hearing. So we have a team of people, our team, who are working on those plans and preparing proponent testimony to give to the actual committee when the hearing occurs. And obviously, we want to get a yes vote, have it pass the committee, and then have it come for a full floor vote in either the Senate or the Assembly, get it passed there, and then gone on to the other house to get it passed in the other house.
Great, thank you. So this question is for all of you guys. As you know, self-governance is such a big tenet, a major tenet of Convention of States. How would you define self-governance? Eric, why don't you start us off?
That's a pretty broad question. The simple answer is we decide what happens here, right? I mean, like, we all go to the polls, we all elect our township committee, we all elect our state assemblymen and senators, and we should be the ones that have a say how our states run, how our towns run, not somebody from Washington, D.C. who sends money to us and attaches strings to it so that if you take this money, you must do this, you must teach this in your schools, you must do that, you must build this many affordable housing units, you must. One of the reasons why I moved to this town back in the early 90s is because it's a rural town and was kind of a blast from the past. I mean, it used to be, you drove down Main Street in New Egypt, you felt like you just drove into 1950.
Yes, we noticed.
Yeah. And I like that. That's why I came here. And I don't want the federal government, or for that matter, a governor from Connecticut who doesn't have any clue what New Egypt, New Jersey looks like, telling my township committee, you have to have X number of affordable housing units in this dense, urban, I forget the term, high density housing and all that kind of stuff. You know, the local people should have a say in that, not anybody else. And for me, that's what self-governance really boils down to. And, you know, on the national level, you know, our state, our U.S. representatives and U.S. senators are supposed to represent our interests, not go to Washington, D.C. and do what they think is best, right? I mean, their job is essentially to listen to us. And, you know, as originally set up, the senators, U.S. senators, are supposed to look out for the best interests of the state. And instead, you know, because of the 17th Amendment, they're now elected directly by the people. And, you know, that sounds like maybe a good thing, but in reality, you know, Senator Cory Booker, for example, is accountable to 9 million people in New Jersey. If I call him up and say, hey, I'm not happy with your position on reparations, or I'm not happy with your position on immigration, he's going to be like, so what? You're one of 9 million. And that's the end of that conversation. Whereas,
so when you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you call a local representative, how often do you get them on the phone?
Sometimes they answer the phone themselves, as opposed to having a secretary or an assistant. You know, our assemblyman's office is about 5 miles from here, 5 miles north of here. I can go knock on his door and sit down at his desk and have a conversation with that guy. That makes a big difference. You know, there's 40 districts in New Jersey, so if they were all divided up equally, there's 700,000 people per district. That's a heck of a lot smaller group to be accountable to. So, you know, when somebody is talking to them, they're going to pay attention.
Tara, why don't you?
I mean, I have similar views to Eric. I mean, obviously you want that local control. You know, and if you think about it, it's just more efficient. It's more effective. It just makes more sense. We want to be governed by the people that live among us. It's just, instead of this crazy Washington, D.C. trying to fit a square peg in a round hole all the time. It's just a better, I think people would just be happier, and again, more efficient, more effective, and probably a lot less expensive.
Yeah,
once we get that, I mean, but we do need to get the federal boot off our neck. You know, as hard as we try to make changes in New Jersey, step number one is getting the federal boot off our neck, because otherwise we're just going to be tinkering around the edges. But once we have that boot off our neck, it's going to be sky's the limit for New Jersey, for sure.
Okay, to me, self-governance is making decisions for your own life. You're the one who has skin in the game. It's not only for your own well-being, it's for your medical decisions, and it's for your community, your family, your town, your state. If you do not get involved, that's our duty as American citizens, to be involved. And we are a government by the people and for the people. If we don't know what's going on, we can't make any decisions. If you don't know your rights, you can't fight for your rights. So we need to get involved locally. If we get involved locally, we can make changes on the broader scale through the state and on to the federal government.
Gary, why don't you finish it up for us?
Yeah, I totally echo what Jan, Tara, and Eric have said. And I would add maybe a bit of a finer point, or try to. I would say self-governance starts with personal responsibility. And it's the mindset that governing decisions start with ourselves, then expand to those closest to us, our family, our friends, then to our neighborhood, our community, our voting wards and precincts, our county voting apparatus, our states, and to our federal government. In other words, expanding spheres of responsibility and governing decisions. It's kind of a reversal of the mindset that we've kind of come to in America, which is a top-down, so to speak, governing mindset, where we first look to the federal government for governing decisions. Self-governance, actually, you can trace it back to the founding of our nation, to the Mayflower Compact. And self-governance developed from there up into the founding era. And it's actually infused into the nation's constitution and its founding principles. So Self-governance obviously is not easy. It's liberty. It's inextricably bound to liberty. These are not easy things. It's much easier, of course, to put the decisions and the responsibility off to a bigger entity, the federal government, the state government, rather than first looking at ourselves for governing decisions. So what I'm trying to say is we need to be courageous about how our nation is governed and how our lives are governed. I think that's kind of where it starts.
Okay. So Jan and Tara, so you touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but tell me why, you had your moment of where you decided I'm going to get involved. Why Convention of States versus some other organizations that are out there?
Well, there's a lot of great groups out there. I think they're doing different things, but basically, this is the organization that actually can change things. There's a lot of groups that are, again, they're really great, they're doing great things, but they're more, it's kind of promoting your views, like you've promoted them for decades. I mean, it's like similar to the Tea Party, all those people that went there, and really nothing changed.
Right.
So, while those efforts are, should continue, I just feel like this is the thing that could actually make the changes happen. Mm-hmm. There's a legislative process. It's in the Constitution. It tells us exactly how to do it. We just have to, like Gary said, it's harder to do it this way, to self-govern. It's harder, but the payoff is probably worth it, I think.
Jan?
Well, who doesn't like term limits? Who doesn't like fiscal responsibility for the federal government? Who doesn't want to pull back the power and reach of the federal government so it doesn't touch every single aspect of your life? Oh, my goodness. So that was the beginning. I, too, read Liberty Amendments and started learning more and more. But I have to say the Convention of States offers so much education. It offers so many avenues to connect and network with other patriots. You're calling and talking and reaching out to so many people. You may think you're the only one in your neighborhood, the only one in your town that feels this way. You're not. Trust me. There's a lot of people out there, and through Convention of States, we can make that connection, and we can work together to stand and save our constitutional republic.
Eric and Gary, when you decided to join, or prior to joining Convention of States, what type of political activism or volunteering did you do prior?
None whatsoever.
So you don't need to be a professional to get involved, you're saying?
Not at all. I voted, and that's really about it. And frankly, after Clinton won the election, my guy lost, and I got disgusted, and I don't think I voted in the next election until I got married, and my wife and I were talking politics. And she said, if you're not voting, you're part of the problem, not part of the solution, and you have no right to complain. So she got me to vote and got me to pay attention, but other than that, no political involvement whatsoever until I got involved with this group.
Yep, same here as Eric. I was not politically active until I heard about Convention of States. That's where I made the change to being politically active.
Great. So we're going to get on an elevator together. And you have 1 minute to convince me to join Convention of States. What's your pitch, Jan?
Oh, boy. So, okay, Chris. What do you think about what's happening in Washington today?
It's disgusting.
It's horrible, right?
Yes.
Do something about it.
Okay.
Join fellow patriots and work to save our constitutional republic. Help us use our Constitution to save our Constitution. I have taken a stand with Convention of States. This is where I stand. I can look my children in the eye and say that I worked to save the country for them.
Would you say they're part of the reason you're doing this?
They're the whole reason. They're the whole reason. Most of my life has passed. I may have, you know, a few more years, but, you know, one or two. But my children are just starting. They're just starting to buy houses. They're just starting to make their American dream. And if I don't do something to save their country for them, I won't be able to look them in the eye. So take a stand. Together, we can actually make a difference. So what do you say? You in?
I'll give you my answer. I got 3 other people to listen to first.
You know, to me, it depends on who I'm talking to. If somebody, they'll usually say something that will catch my ear, and I'm like, okay, I'll complain, or maybe it's a complaint about something. I'll go, you know, there's an organization that's actually working on fixing exactly that. I mean, you can pretty much work it in, and they go, really? And then that's it. So they kind of make a statement that makes me be able to sort of make a broader conversation.
So when we're at a petition drive and people are walking past the table and trying to studiously ignore us, I say, how'd you like to impose term limits on federal officials? And that usually makes them stop and turn around. And then I say, how about a balanced budget on the federal government? Now they're paying attention. And then when I say, reduce the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, then we start having a conversation. And Article 5 is the way to do that. So then I explain that there are 2 ways to amend the Constitution. Article 5 spells them both out. One is for the U.S. Congress, 2/3 of the U.S. Congress to vote and decide that we need amendments, and they draft and propose amendments, and then it comes down to the states for ratification. The other way that's never been used is for 2/3 of the state legislatures to decide we need amendments, and we call a convention of states. Then we have influence over the process. Then we call our state legislators or whoever the commissioners are going to be. We have some influence over that process, and we can have some input. And that's the way that we restore, you know, return power to the people, which is where it belongs, right? Government for the people, by the people. That's how that happens. Right now, you know, using the first method, all the power to change the federal government lies with the federal government. How does that make any sense at all? So, you know, so join this movement and help us return the power to the people where it belongs.
So I'm only 75% sure I'm going to join, Gary, so it's all up to you.
I just want to share a real quick story. We were at a petition drive not long ago at a gun store, and some of the people would pass and say, I'll stop on the way out. And Eric would say to them, if you don't stop, I'll tackle you. I know I would stop then.
But we don't condone violence. We don't condone violence. That's true. That's the worst place for it.
Chris, did you know that we have a tool for canceling tyranny?
I did not.
We do. And the framers of the Constitution put this tool into the Constitution unanimously because they saw the swamp coming. They didn't call it the swamp, they used other words, but it amounts to the same thing. They knew that it was going to be up to the people driving the state legislatures, us, driving the state legislatures to use this tool to save our nation. The framers predicted the swamp. Yeah. And they gave us this way, but it's up to us. That means it's our responsibility to use this power that they gave us. It's a specific power, a specific tool. Call it a weapon. It's not a bloody weapon, but it's a weapon for defending liberty and for saving our nation. And the framers did not lay down their weapons for fear that they would be taken from them and used against them. We cannot lay down this weapon out of fear that it's going to be used against us either. We need to use it.
All right. Hold on. So I just want to add to one point that Gary made. So it was 2 days before the convention, the Constitutional Convention was set to end. So they've been in Philadelphia for 4 or 5 months now, and they debated every single element of the Constitution. The only element that they did not debate was Article 5. That was it, or Clause 2 of Article 5. That was the only one. So that tells you how sure they were that we would end up here, and how sure they thought this was the remedy. So, all right, so you convinced me. I'm going to join. My question, though, is what am I going to be doing to help the team succeed? Gary?
There are a wide variety of things that you can do to help, depending on what your special skills and talents are. There's things that ranging from working directly with state lawmakers, planning and coordinating events, working with the media, doing follow-up work, grassroots development, coalition building, content writing. We need district captains in certain districts in New Jersey. That's the person who oversees that district. They're the director of their district. So there's, whatever your skills and talents are, there's almost certainly a way to use them. And even if you're very busy, there's ways that you can help with limited time. Don't let that stop you, please.
Anything you want to add, Eric? Tara, Gary covered a lot there, but if there's other...
I always tell people, even if all you have is 15 minutes a week, use it. You know, one of the most important things we do is make follow-up calls to petition signers to try to welcome them to the group. That's how I got involved. A wonderful volunteer named Susan Jones called me. She was super friendly, super enthusiastic, and she got me involved right away, gave me something to do. It doesn't take a lot of time. You can make 3 or 4 phone calls, 5 phone calls in 15. Most of the time you're leaving messages. You know, 15 minutes a week makes a difference.
So are you guys, you all have full-time jobs, correct?
Part-time.
Part-time. So in a week, how much time so you have your 40 hours, maybe Jan, 20 hours, you know, whatever it is you're devoting to your part-time. How many hours are you devoting to Convention of States every week?
A few, but I mean,
this was a confession.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Oh no, that definitely won't happen. It's. I mean, it's really just. It's up to what you have.
Well, we are in a church, you know, so.
Mike's right there, by the way.
Right.
Oh, all right. No, you'll be really happy.
He knows if you're lying.
It definitely works because, I mean, you don't have to do as many hours as necessarily. It's just what you have. And the best thing is you meet the best people. You are not even going to believe who I recruited yesterday. Santa Claus. I am not kidding. Santa Claus.
That's a big one. We needed him.
Well, all I wanted to say is God has given us all special gifts. And you can use your gift in whatever time you have to apply to your country as well as to your family. So please join us, help us. We could sure use the help. New Jersey needs help. Thank you so much.
So I want to thank you guys for taking part in the panel discussion. I think it was both informative and I think it was inspiring, quite frankly. But for me, I think the biggest thing I'm going to take away from it is you don't need to be a political expert. You don't need to know the Constitution to get involved. Really what it is, get involved and everything else will fall in place. So thank you guys.
I got one last thing I want to add real quick, and that is almost everybody that I talk to says it'll never happen in New Jersey, talking about passing this convention. And I said that very thing to Gary the first time I met him, and his answer to me was every little bit helps. My daughter moved to San Diego about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. So she is on the left coast, right, in California, about the bluest state there is. I come to find out because she's there that San Diego is considered a red city in a blue state, which I had no idea. But she's involved in Convention of States out there. And we have a monthly training call, statewide training call. And during her training call, the person leading the call pointed to the New Jersey group and said, this is what an active group looks like. This is what we should be doing. So even if the resolution never passes in New Jersey, we're still having an impact on other groups in other states who are working to make this happen. So it'll never happen in New Jersey is not a reason not to join.
Yep. So in wrapping up, folks, I want to remind everyone really the debt as freedom-minded Americans that we have. It's not the federal debt that I'm referring to, but it's the debt that we owe to the people who came before us that established and preserved our government that's run by and for the people. You know, I'm referring to the founding fathers, who many of them lost children, lost fortunes, lost their own lives by declaring our independence from Britain and creating this great nation that we have. I'm referring to the soldiers who went off to, to fight for the Constitution and really maintain the way of life we have, many of who came back either physically wounded, mentally wounded, or the over 1 million who never came home. So really, based on that debt, it's really not acceptable anymore to stand on the sidelines. You need to get in the game, and really the team to join is Convention of States. Fortunately, we don't have a tryout. All you need to do is sign up. It's really simple. And we have members all throughout the building today. Go talk to them. If you're unsure, ask them questions. Bounce ideas off them, whatever it may be. Get yourself comfortable and join. If you've joined, but you really haven't taken part, again, speak to some of the members and find out what you can do to devote more time. But it's, as I said, it's unacceptable at this point. And the one thing I assure you is our opponents, they're not giving up. They're ahead of us, and they're not giving up. The only way they give up is when we, the people, beat them. That's it. So every time we get a new volunteer joining, we're one step closer to winning and beating them. So I thank you, and I thank you for your time, folks. Very good.